In this video, we're going to tie the neon icon. The neon icon is a creation of Sam Sumlin, and Sam owns Space Coast Flies and has a fly shop in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And he created this fly to catch species in the surf. And I can personally attest to his effectiveness. I used it a few months ago on a trip to the Gulf Shores area and caught at least a half dozen species in the surf. Great on pompano, small jacks, bluefish, pretty much you name it. Anything that feeds in the surf will eat this fly. But I also tie it in a different color scheme, and let me grab one of those. I tie it in this black and green for freshwater, and I've caught a number of freshwater species including bass, white bass, freshwater drum. It's just really an effective pattern. It's quick and easy to tie, and you can tie it in any color combination really to fit any fishing environment. So let's give it a try. The hook I'm using is a Gamakatsu SC15 in size 1. This is a great, strong, sharp saltwater hook, and they run small, so the size 1 is not nearly as large as other size 1s are. And for thread, I'm using ultra thread in 140 denier, and this is fluorescent shell pink. You can also use a fluorescent orange if you would like to do so. And I'm going to start my thread, about a hook eye back from the front of the hook. And that really just marks the forward point of where I want to tie my eyes in. And we'll lay a thread base back down into the bend of the hook. Now this doesn't have to be touching wraps, and we want to go down into the bend, probably about a third of the way. So our thread is about halfway between the hook barb and the back of the hook. And then I bring my thread back forward. And again, these don't have to be touching wraps. You can spiral forward. And I leave my thread hanging about a hook eye back. I want to leave plenty of room for my eyes there. And for eyes, I'm using double pupil lead. This is medium dumbbell. And I just use my standard eye tie-in here with a few cross wraps in one direction and a few other in the other direction. And that's a little far back, so I'm going to push it forward a bit. And then I like to do these stirrup wraps over the top of the eye, under the hook shank, over the top of the other side of the eye. And that just really cinches that eye down. And then those horizontal wraps above the hook shank and under the eye. And then with my eye secured, I take my thread back, not all the way, but to about the hook barb. Now here we're going to make what would be, I guess you could call it an egg sac if this were a shrimp pattern. And I'm using Petite Estaz. This is opal light pink. Again, you can use whatever color you like, but this matches and works pretty well with this pattern. And again, I like to strip a little bit of those fibers off the end just to create a clean tie-in point. And I tie that in just above the hook barb, and then I wrap it down to the base of my thread base, which is right about there. And then I bring my thread back to that hook point. Now I'm going to wrap this Estaz, and the thread's kind of in the way here, so I'm just going to hang it over my lid eyes just to get it out of the way. And I'm probably going to take about 1, maybe 3 wraps, and I'm pulling those fibers back with each wrap. There's 2. And this is a Petite Estaz you can certainly use, and there's 3. You can use standard Estaz if you want a little bit more flash. And then I tie that off, actually still down into the bend of the hook a bit. And I take my thread forward, to about the hook point and trim off that excess. Now you notice that this egg sac or hot spot, whatever you want to call it, is below the line of the shaft of the hook, and that's where we want it. We want our craft fur tail to sit on top of that. And so that's our next material. The tail of this fly is extra select craft fur, and we're using chartreuse here. And we don't want a very long tail. This chartreuse extra select is probably 4 or 5 inches long. We actually we've got a lot of fibers there. We actually want only about a piece about 2.5 inches long. So I'm going to trim it about here, and all this part with the underfur we're not going to need. So I'm just going to trim that craft fur right there. and any stray pieces I just get out of the way. And I don't want to shove it up against my eyes, so just I tie it down where the butts are just back from the eyes a bit. And I wrap forward there. And again, these don't have to be touching wraps. All of this is going to be covered. But I want to wrap all the way back, and I'm holding this up so I can keep the craft fur on top of the hook, all the way back to where that Estaz is tied in. And then again, bring my thread to about the hook point. Now the next materials are rubber legs, and again, you can choose any color you like. These are crazy legs, and this is pink pearl pepper, but any rubber leg, and you can tie one. Sam uses one, so that's what I'm going to use in this video. I sometimes tie this with two, but I loop the leg under the hook shank and in front of the thread because I want a leg on each side, and I just give it a few wraps back. And while I have the legs in my hand, I want to cut them, just a little bit shorter than the tail, or about the length of the tail. And that tail's actually just a little bit long, so I'm going to trim some of that. And with craft fur, you can just kind of slide your scissors down it and shorten that up just a bit. So there are legs. Now, I want to leave my thread again at that point, kind of in front of the hook point. And the next material is the really unique material for this, and it's wire-free synthetic fox brushes, and we're using salmon color here. There's also an orange color that would work really well with this, and this is really hard to find. The stuff is hard to find, but it works really great. Now, if you can't find it, of course, you could make your own synthetic brush, but this really makes this fly quick to tie. And like I did the chenille, I've stripped a little bit of those, a short amount of those fibers off the front just to create a clean tie-in point there. And I tie that in right at that point in front of my hook point. Wrap it back to the base of that tail. And then bring my thread forward. And again, I don't have to tie all that down because we're going to wrap this and cover it up. Bring my thread back to just behind the lid eyes. Get rid of that extra fiber. And I kind of fluff this up. And I like to pull those fibers back. And so I make one wrap, again, pulling back all the way. And I'm wrapping right in front of the previous wrap. So 2 wraps. Doesn't take much of this. 3 wraps. You see some of it comes out there. And this is my 4th wrap. Now, I like for my flies to look kind of neat, so I'm actually going to tie this off on the bottom instead of bringing it up here and tying it off. I don't want my cutoff on the top. So I'm going to tie it off on the bottom with just 1, 2, 3, 4 nice tight wraps of thread. And then snip that excess brush off. Pull all this back. You might get a few fibers around the eye, just like I have, but that's really fine. It's kind of hard to avoid with this fly. But I move my thread in front of the eyes and create a small thread head. And then I grab my whip finish tool and give it a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. I like to do front to back, so I finish up near the eyes. Trim off that tag end. And then I can pick some of this out. You can use a brush or just your fingers like I'm doing. Just pick some of this out and then just pull it all back. And that is the neon icon. Hope you'll give it a try. I fished this just a few months ago in the surf and caught, as I said in the intro, at least a half dozen species. It's a super effective fly. And I encourage you also to try the other colors like we showed in the introduction for freshwater. I've had a lot of success with this fly. So it's quick and easy to tie, and I hope you'll give it a try.